shook his head in answer. Strangely enough, I was not greatly surprised all this time either at the novelty of my whereabouts or at the hypnotic instruction in a new language just received. Perhaps it was because my head still spun too giddily with that flight in the old rug for much thought. Perhaps because I did not yet fully realize the thing that had happened. But anyhow, there is the fact, which, like so many others in my narrative, must, alas, remain unexplained for the moment. The rug, by the way, had completely disappeared, my friend comforting me on this score, however, by saying he had seen it rolled up and taken away by one whom he knew. "We are very tidy people here, stranger," he said, "and everything found lying about goes back to the palace storerooms. You will laugh to see the lumber there, for few of us ever take the trouble to reclaim our property." Heaven knows I was in no laughing mood when I saw that enchanted web again. When I had lain and watched the brightening scene for a time, I got up, and having stretched and shaken my clothes into some sort of order, we strolled down the hill and joined the light-hearted crowds that twined across the plain and through the streets of their city of booths. They were the prettiest, daintiest folk ever eyes looked upon, well formed and like to us as could be in the main, but slender and willowy, so dainty and light both the men and the women, so pretty of cheek and hair, so mild of aspect. I felt as I strode amongst them I could have plucked them like flowers and bound them up in bunches with my belt. And yet somehow I liked them from the first minute. Such a happy, careless, light-hearted race, again I say, never was seen before. There was not a strain of thought or care on a single one of those white foreheads that eddied round me under their peaked, blossom-like caps. The perpetual smile their faces wore never suffered rebuke anywhere. Their movements were graceful and slow, their laughter was low and musical. There was an odour of friendly, slothful happiness about them that made me admire whether I would or no. Unfortunately, I was not able to live on laughter as they appeared to be, so presently turning to my acquaintance, who had told me his name was the plain monosyllabic An, and clapping my hand on his shoulder as he stood lost in sleepy reflection, said, in a good hearty way, "Hello, friend Yellow Jerkin. If a stranger might set himself athwart of the cheerful current of your meditations, may such a one ask how far 'tis the nearest wine shop, or a booth where a thirsty man may get a mug of ale at a moderate reckoning?" That gilded youth staggered under my friendly blow as though the hammer of Thor himself had suddenly lit upon his shoulder, and ruefully rubbing his tender skin, he turned on me mild, handsome eyes, answering after a moment, during which his native mildness struggled with the pain I had unwittingly given him. "If your thirst be as emphatic as your greeting, friend Heavy Fist, it will certainly be a kindly deed to lead you to the drinking place. My shoulder tingles with your good fellowship," he added, keeping 2 arms' length clear of me. "Do you wish," he said, "merely to cleanse a dusty throat, or for blue or pink oblivion?" "Why," I answered laughingly, "I have come a longish journey since yesterday night, a journey out of count of all reasonable mileage, and I might fairly plead a dusty throat as excuse for a beginning. But as to the other things mentioned, those tinted forgetfulnesses, I do not even know what you mean." "Undoubtedly you are a stranger," said the friendly youth, eyeing me from top to toe with renewed wonder, "and by your unknown garb one from afar." "From how far no man can say, not even I, but from very far in truth. Let that stay your curiosity for a time. And now to bench and ale mug, on good fellow, the shortest way. I was never so thirsty as this since our water butts went overboard when I sailed on southern seas as a tramp apprentice, and for 3 days we had to damp our black tongues with the puddles the night dews left in the lift of our mainsail." Without more words, being a little awed of me, I thought, the boy led me through the good-humoured crowd to where, facing the main road to town, but a little sheltered by a thicket of trees covered with gigantic pink blossoms, stood a drinking place, a cluster of tables set round an open grass plot. Here he brought me a platter of some light inefficient cakes which merely served to make hunger more self-conscious, and some fine aromatic wine contained in a triple-bodied flask, each division containing vintage of a separate hue. We broke our biscuits, sipped that mysterious wine, and talked of many things until at last something set us on the subject of astronomy, a study I found my dapper gallant had some knowledge, which was not to be wondered at seeing he dwelt under skies each night set thick above his curly head with tawny planets, and glittering constellations sprinkled through space like flowers in May meadows. He knew what worlds went round the sun, larger or lesser, and seeing this I began to question him, for I was uneasy in my innermost mind, and, you will remember, so far had no certain knowledge of where I was, only a dim, restless suspicion that I had come beyond the ken of all men's knowledge. Therefore, sweeping clear the board with my sleeve, and breaking the wafer cake I was eating, I set down one central piece for the sun, and "See here," I said, "good fellow, This morsel shall stand for that son you have just been welcoming back with quaint ritual. Now stretch your starry knowledge to the utmost, and put down that tankard for a moment. If this be yonder sun, and this lesser crumb be the outermost of one of our revolving system, and this the next within, and this the next, and so on. Now if this be, so tell me which of these fragmentary orbs is ours? Which of all these crumbs from the hand of the primordial would be that we stand upon? And I waited with an anxiety a light manner thinly hid to hear his answer. It came at once, laughing as though the question were too trivial, and more to humour my wayward fancy than aught else. That boy circled his rosy thumb about a minute and brought it down on the planet Mars. I started and stared at him. Then all of a tremble cried, "You trifle with me. Choose again. There, see, I will set the symbols and name them to you anew. There now, on your soul, tell me truly which this planet is, the one here at our feet." And again the boy shook his head, wondering at my eagerness, and pointed to Mars, saying gently as he did so the fact was certain as the day above us. Nothing was marvellous but my questioning. Mars! Oh, dreadful, tremendous, unexpected! With a cry of affright, and bringing my fist down upon the table till all the cups upon it leapt, I told him he lied like a simpleton whose astronomy was as rotten as his wit, smote the table and scowled at him for a spell, then turned away and let my chin fall upon my breast and my hands upon my lap. And yet it might be so. Everything about me was new and strange. The crisp, thin air I breathed was new. The lukewarm sunshine new. The sleek, long, ivory faces of the people new. Yesterday, was it yesterday? I was back there, away in a world that pines to know of other worlds, and one fantastic wish of mine, backed by a hideous infernal chance, had swung back the doors of space and shot me, if that boy spoke true, into the outer void where never living man had been before. All my wits about me, all the horrible bathos of my earthly clothing on me, all my terrestrial hungers in my veins. I sprang to my feet and swept my hands across my eyes. Was that a dream, or this? No, no, both were too real. The hum of my faraway city still rang in my ears. A swift vision of the girl I had loved, of the men I had hated, of the things I had hoped for rose before me, still dazing my inner eye. And these about me were real people too. It was real earth, real skies, trees, and rocks. Had the infernal gods indeed heard, I asked myself, the foolish wish that started from my lips in a moment of fierce discontent, and swept me into another sphere, another existence? I looked at the boy as though he could answer that question, but there was nothing in his face but vacuous wonder. I clasped my hands together and beat my breast. It was true. My soul within me said it was true. The boy had not lied. The jinns had heard. I was just in the flesh I had, my common human hungers still unsatisfied where never mortal man had hungered before, and scarcely knowing whether I feared or not, whether to laugh or cry, but with all the wonder and terror of that great remove sweeping suddenly upon me I staggered back to my seat, and dropping my arms upon the table, leant my head heavily upon them and strove to choke back the passion which beset me. Chapter 2